Anyway, hello to everyone here. I'm Lewis. I am the CMO here at Eastside Co. I'm here with Claire and Ellis, and I'll let those guys introduce themselves shortly. We're going to be going over some conversion rate optimization recommendations from both the guys. Just before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. Obviously, feel free to put what you want in chat, talk to each other, talk to us. If you've got a question that you want specifically answering, there is a questions function, so you can just pop your questions in there, and that way I'll be able to keep them kind of logged and make sure that we're actually answering the questions for you, so they don't get missed if the chat does get busy. So we'll probably do those at the end. Like I said, we do have some questions that have already been asked prior to the start of the webinar, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So Claire's going to be taking you through 6, I think. We promised 10. We promised 10 recommendations for conversion rate optimization. We've actually got a little bonus one in there because Claire could not help herself. She had to add more value. So Claire's going to be going through 6, and then Ellis has quite routinely stuck to the original 5 as agreed. So we'll be going through those. Claire, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people what you do, and then we can have Ellis introduce herself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the optimization and growth specialist here at Eastside Co. I work with a range of clients across a spectrum of kind of every industry, and I work with them on full strategy. So not just on site, but the full customer experience and creating ways to optimize, but also grow those customers that they're having and make sure that they're returning and they are providing as much value as possible.
Superb. And Ellis.
Yes.
What do you do?
I am the manager of commercial partnerships at Yotpo. And when it gets to my section, I can introduce Yotpo in a bit more detail, but essentially my role is working with the likes of Eastside Co, building relationships and partnerships with all of our agencies, making sure really that their clients can, launch and go to market and have beautiful websites with the right tools, and Yotpo being part of that tech stack. So yeah, excited to share my 5 tips today.
I'll just as a quick kind of pre-question, I am right in saying that I think you've said this quite a few times directly, but I'm right in saying that Eastside Co is actually your favourite partner, isn't it?
Yes.
That's right. Yes. Just wanted to make sure that was clear to.
I mean, you are our premier partner, so
premier partner in.
Does it itself, right?
That's brilliant. Right. First of all, we are going to go. Claire's going to be presenting first, so she'll take you through her first 6 tips. So over to you, Claire. Take it away.
Okay. So I'm going to start with probably my favorite point altogether, and this is one that I could talk about for hours, but is listening and learning from what your customers are really feeling. So with this, my biggest recommendation is to add surveys to the site, specifically on pages like your thank you or order confirmation page, and start to understand what your customers are really feeling. The reason why I would say to do this is you're working with customers that have already bought into you. They're already in love with the brand. They're not going to back someone that's a loser. They're only ever going to back winners. So they're already, it's an effect called, a psychological effect called liking, where they're already so heavily invested, they're going to give you that feedback and they're going to be positive. We would say to put the survey on the thank you page and just start to gather what they're feeling. The types of questions that we'd really advise asking are very open-ended, especially to start with. You want to avoid influencing any of the responses and getting it as open and as honest as possible. So the types of things would be, what's your biggest fear or concern about purchasing from us? Is there any way we can persuade you into shopping with us more often? Is there something that nearly stopped you from buying today? Those are my kind of 3 go-tos that I would start with. And then from those results, I would definitely then start to target certain areas that I want to find out more about. The reason why I would really push this as something to consider and something of the most importance is we can all sit and look at, most companies have GA and Hotjar running at the site, but we don't really know what's going through their mind as they're looking at the website, and we can't actually understand what's going on. We are very informed users because obviously we know our brands inside out, we know how to use the website inside out, we know everything down to details that they would never even consider. So we're way too informed to actually look at the data in an honest perspective and really understand what they're thinking and what they're meaning. Similarly, we will automatically start to look at the data with a bias. If we've got a certain thing that we're wanting to implement, we'll start to look at the data and pull out bits of the data that backs that consideration. So by looking to open up a survey, you're removing any of this external influence that you're having on the data, and you're looking at it in a very pure light. The only downside to this, you do get a very large amount of responses if you have enough traffic going to that page, or if you leave it running long enough. By having the qualitative element, it becomes very tricky to kind of filter through it all and actually analyze every element of that data. The second point, which again is one that I talk about quite a lot, is improving conversations with customers. So it's quite a common friction point. If a customer can't find the answer that they're looking for, they will just go elsewhere. We're in an age where emails are very formal, calling up a company, it's very formal, it takes a lot of time. You've got to be very committed to a company to be able to do that. So this is where we would definitely recommend looking to implement a conversational tool on the website. So something like an on-site live chat, pushing people onto social media if they have any questions, if there's anything outstanding. And it removes that friction point, it removes any concerns, it removes the commitment and makes it more anonymized if you're doing it online, because you're not giving across your phone number or your email address to actually be able to talk to the company. You can do it with just entering in your name, and you know that you're not going to be stuck for hours or weeks having to try and get to the end of a solution. So it's keeping them on your site going and not going to a competitor, and it's keeping them from kind of seeing any blockers into not purchasing, or to having to kind of sit around and not purchase on that initial point. From working with customers that have implemented this, we've seen a 200% increase in the number of people actually creating conversations and asking questions with brands. And a lot of these can be, 19% I think is pretty standard as well, are using macro responses. So these are just pre-made responses. You can even add them into automations and stuff. So if people are using words like, how do I return a product? It can just automatically ping back a response going, cool, this is how you do it. And that way you are saving people's time to have to kind of go in and interact with these, but you're also fulfilling what they're looking for without having to send them all around your website and potentially off your site to find out this information. The next one would be something along the lines of visual selling icons. And there's, again, numerous ways in which this can be implemented in a site. So you can look into things like stickers and badges on products from the collection page. So the most common ones that you'll see is bestseller, most popular, new in. Staff picks is quite a nice one for certain industries, especially if you're working with influencers or anything like that. You can start to check in sort of XYZ influencers' favorites. And it's a nice social selling, and it's a nice, with obviously some of these you get a FOMO, for others you get a sense of kind of going with the crowd, not wanting to, following whoever is of interest to you. The other element is looking to add adverts in, and this is especially useful when you're looking at some of the smaller collections. It just keeps the user browsing. So if they get to the bottom of that page and they've not found the product that they're looking for, you could link them off to another similar area, or if you're buying, I can't think of something off the top of my head, but selling products that kind of correspond and go with that, it really helps to kind of keep them shopping. It helps to increase basket value. And if they haven't found it, they can be put into other areas where they're able to find it. So anything that kind of is just helping to incentivize and remind them, and to kind of really push these kind of psychological techniques of FOMO. So just kind of preying on that fear, or preying on the kind of sheep following aspect where people are most likely to follow crowds. It is one that we would definitely be recommending to kind of use few and far between. So make sure every product isn't registered as bestseller, or every product isn't a staff pick, but kind of just have a handful scattered around the website. You can either use these strategically. So if you've got a large buy of a product that isn't going as well, or if you've got a product that is kind of lingering around a little bit, you can use these strategically and say, this is a bestseller, or this is you know, a favorite of so-and-so, and really start to push products more because they would just get more attention by being eye-catching as well as using those techniques. The next one is visual hierarchy and simplifying user journeys. So to kind of explain this one, I've added in a diagram to the side. Visual hierarchy basically is where you automatically are programmed in the order in which you're going to read something, or the order in which you travel through a website, or just look at items. So for instance, the one to the side, you're most likely to read that bigger text that's in bold. You're then going to read the one slightly above it, and then you go to that tiny text right at the bottom. It's just an instinct that's kind of been added where that is what we do. A lot of websites won't always consider this when creating the navigation, and they'll create a really great navigation. There's loads of options on there, but they're all equally ranked. Or you might have numerous call to actions throughout the website, but they're all, again, the same color, the same design. A lot of companies will look at having primary and secondary CTAs. Your primary CTA is really bold, really eye-catching, and that's your sales CTA. And then you have a subsidiary one that might be kind of find out more, view more, those kind of options that aren't so much a sales one, but they're also needed. So they're in a less striking and less desirable color, just to kind of really make those important salesy ones stick out. And as I said, simplifying things with the navigation is really great, just so, again, the user can easily kind of travel through and they can work out the importance and where they need to be driven. So trying to make it simple, not too complicated, making sure you have tiers, but also making sure that there aren't too many clicks involved. It's a really hard balancing act at points to kind of manage those two elements. The fifth point is objection handling. And this does kind of tie into the first step, is listening to customers. A lot of the response is probably going to be related to things like, I felt it was too expensive, I couldn't afford it, I found it cheaper on XYZ site. Other things that you might kind of see, and it depends on what industry, is quality, shipping and delivery and returns is also a really common one. So one of the most important things of the site is to tackle these key objections. And again, the kind of having live chat and stuff will help you understand the objections that customers are having when on site. And I've listed out the most common ones that we really see. But it's just key to have throughout the whole website, these being tackled at every point: why you should shop from us and not a competitor, why we value ourselves at this price point, why you should buy from us, how we can prove our quality and reputation. Ideally, at a minimum, I would say have these very close to the buy button, have these globally throughout, like a global banner at the top of the page, just above the navigation. Things like reviews near the product titles, I think, are really key, just to, again, it shows that reputation, it shows the quality of the product. And it's just a smart way to challenge and remind people of the fact that this is why you're buying from us and not going on to another retailer or another supplier. This is kind of our USP. This is where we're showing a value. So, I mean, I think I've done an example for pricing, which is probably the most common one that will always come up. Even if your product is near on free, people will still raise pricing. But it could be showing the quality of the product by showing close-ups, customer reviews, why the quality and how the quality is really great. It could be leveraging some other elements. So if there's anything sustainable about it, this is actually a really growing one at the second. I think over the past 2 years, this has gained rapid momentum. But is it made in a sustainable way, ethical way? Is it using something like organic cotton or denim that hasn't been washed with as much water as other providers? Is there anything there that you can leverage? Or, you know, even if with every purchase you plant a tree, a lot of companies are starting to do, anything along those lines that can kind of leverage, yes, we're slightly more expensive, or yes, we're at this price point, but you've got this feel good factor that kind of lets you leave and go, okay, I've spent a little bit too much money, but I feel good because I've done something good at the same point. And it's kind of, again, it's a psychological technique to justify why they've spent that money. And then the last point is a free shipping threshold, and just making sure this is displayed as frequently throughout the site as possible. Even if it's displayed in the checkout or in the cart, customers still query this at every point. And just making this as clear as possible, potentially looking at some of the things like having a spend X more to get free shipping, just as a reminder on how much to get to that point. Or if it's possible, just offer free shipping to everybody at a basic level. All of these things are kind of just small objections that start to play off to people now that we're in an Amazon Prime kind of world. And then my final point, which is kind of my bonus point, which does tie into everything else, which is why I could be left out, is make sure that your shipping, delivery, and returns policies are really clear in as many places as possible. I would always say make sure it's really easily searchable under shipping, delivery, returns, returning, like every synonym possible under the sun. Make sure that it's all linking to the correct place. They're really clear and simple to understand. So many companies overcomplicate it, add way too many words in to say free shipping on orders over £30 in the UK or in X country. Just make it as simple, as clean, as clear as possible. It's just really important to kind of not add any extra confusion underneath or in another place, just less clear. It can kind of go into descriptions if there's anything like exclusion zones or zones that aren't applicable to kind of free shipping or anything like that. Similarly, quite often, a lot of companies are seeing successes with having it on the product pages and just having it available there as a low priority, but just they're ready to answer that question before it kind of crops up into their head. And just kind of making sure it's available and it's easily accessible is kind of the key thing. Cool. I will hand over to Ellis. Those are kind of my 6 points.
Amazing. Thanks, Claire. If you've got any questions on Claire's element, we'll start to see a few questions come in. Please do put them in the Q&A. And we'll answer them after Ellis's presentation. But for now, I'll hand over to you, Ellis. Take it away.
Thank you. Yeah. So I said I guess I'll set a bit of context about why I'm going to suggest the next 5 topics about how we can improve conversion rates. And that's because I'm obviously speaking from a Yotpo perspective. We are an e-commerce marketing platform that works with brands of many sizes, really helps strengthen their relationships with their customers. We have a unified data-driven solutions for loyalty, reviews, SMS, and many more. And it's really all about how can we help brands create those cohesive experiences that, one, drive conversions and ultimately drive e-commerce growth. I thought I'd just set the scene in terms of like conversion rates. So industry average is about less than 3%. And I guess with all the resources that are being put into conversions and things like that, like that can be higher, and hopefully those 6 kind of strategies that Claire just spoke about and the next 5 that I'm going to speak about will really kind of, help you get a higher conversion rate. And I think obviously because, we all know about rising customer acquisition costs and due to increased competition and, changes in privacy and ad targeting and everything like that, brands nowadays really need to be focused on turning visitors into customers. And then once they've got them, of course, how can they turn them into loyal customers to make sure they can come back time and time again? So let's look at, 5 more ways in which we can help increase conversion rates. So starting off then with number 7, following on from Claire's 6, this kind of ties quite nicely into, a number of different points that Claire was talking about, like the first one about listening and learning what your customers are having to say about you. And I think this is a really interesting point because if we think about reviews or surveys and getting feedback there, it can really help inform business decisions, right? If you've asked someone on a survey, like, what were your concerns about buying from us, or what would put you off before? Like, knowing those answers can help really inform decisions as a business. And for me, like, one of the big things that Claire also spoke about was like delivery and shipping. If I can see that a certain brand that I'm buying from, and I'm not going to name names, but if they use a certain shipping vendor, then it puts me off completely, because I just don't want to have to deal with the hassle of, will I actually get my product? Are they going to put something through the door that says, we tried to contact you, but you weren't in, when I quite clearly was in? So getting that feedback can definitely help inform business decisions, but collecting high quality customer reviews can also help guide purchasing decisions as well. So it's really important for brands to, one, make it easy for customers to leave reviews, and then two, make sure you're helping them leave like super high quality reviews. Because if you can help guide that purchasing decision, making sure that you can help your customers find the most relevant content for them, then it's going to lead them to make that purchase. But more importantly, it's going to be a purchase that they feel happy and confident with, because as Claire said, they've made that informed decision to buy it. So really, if you're a brand that's running a review strategy, you need to make sure, one, how can I make it as easy as possible for my customers to leave reviews? And two, like, is there anything I can do to help them kind of leave the best review? And sometimes we will get writer's block as people, right? Like we go, yeah, we'll leave 5 stars. And you go, okay, well, why? And you might get a bit stuck. So there are certain things that you can do that you can help encourage people. Perhaps you want to talk about the quality, the fit, the pricing, the delivery, and all of those kind of things to make sure that you're getting those rich quality reviews. And a brand that does that really well is Sol de Janeiro. So in all of the examples that I go through, I'll kind of back it up with a brand that is doing it well. Sol de Janeiro, they came to Yotpo to really boost their D2C presence after selling successfully in Sephora. So selling offline, but they wanted to replicate that success online. First of all, they wanted to collect as much content as possible. So the more content you have on site, the better it's going to be for conversions, because customers feel confident that they've got all the information that they need. So they started to incentivize their customers via coupons and discounts in order to leave a review. And then the second thing, what they want to do is, now we've got all of this amazing content that they're able to generate. So within 6 months, they increased their review generation by 4.3%. It was then, how can we display this on the product page to make sure that people can find the most relevant feedback for them? Because if we go to a product page and all we see is 5-star great, 1-star rubbish, that's really not helping anyone. It's not helping the brand, and it's not helping that customer to convert. So what Sol de Janeiro implemented was what we call our AI smart filters, which meant as a customer, you could filter and find the most relevant review content for them, whether that was on topics such as the fragrance of a moisturizer, the absorption rate, the texture, the quality, or whether that's on customer attributes. So I could go on site and say, show me all the reviews for females who are aged between 30 and 35, who have dry skin, because they're going to be the most relevant for me. And what I see and engage, about their understanding of the product is going to ultimately help me convert. Sol de Janeiro saw great success with being able to offer all of this. 82% of all sales came from shoppers who interacted with that user-generated content. And then they saw a 58% increase in returning customers, which just goes to highlight the importance of, if you have a great product and high quality reviews, it definitely does help drive conversions and retention as well. Moving on to point number 8, curate and display visual UGC. So one of the biggest problems or hurdles that we have when we're buying online, of course, is that we cannot pick up the product. We can't feel it, we can't touch it, we can't try it on. And reviews do a really good job of kind of overcoming that hurdle. But reviews with rich content like photos and videos are even more effective. And why they help boost conversions is because as a customer, you can actually start to see authentic photos from real life people who are using this product. And I'm definitely someone that needs to benefit from this. I buy something online, I see a dress and I think, yeah, it looks nice. I try it on, and maybe on the model, the dress came down to the knees, but when I try it on, it's coming down to my ankles. Why? Because that model is 6'5" and I'm 5'3". If I could see actual images of other people, if I could filter content by show me all the reviews and photos of people who are petite, who are less than 5'5", so I can then actually start to see how it fits on them, then that's going to help me in my purchasing decision. And maybe it's not a good fit for me, but that's okay. It's not getting the conversion on that product, but maybe I can identify what I need to know about another product on this site, so I can go and find, okay, actually for this range, I do need petite. And by knowing that information, it's not a bad thing if I don't convert, because if I did buy it, then I'm going to have to return it anyway. So reviews are do a really good job of reducing those return rates as well. It doesn't just have to be photo and video content from reviews, although it's an amazing place to capture that content. Curating images and videos from social channels like Instagram, displaying that across multiple different sites of the buyer journey is really important and will increase that social proofing. And we see about 166% average uplift in on-site conversions by displaying that social proofing. If you think about the places to help conversions on the homepage, it's just like looking through a shop window. Display imagery that has all your collections, really start to inspire and tell the story of a brand. On the product page, we want to get that conversion for this product. So just show me images of that product. And then what we are seeing is actually more brands nowadays creating dedicated UGC galleries to really help inspire, decrease that time between product discovery and product purchase. Now, a brand that does that really well is the iconic brand Emma Bridgewater. I'm sure most people are familiar with them, with all of their plates and bowls and mugs, all with beautiful imagery and designs on it. So they really do use visual UGC to kind of bring together their community and really get them to share all of their amazing products. So when they implemented Yotpo, they collected like over 30,000 reviews and over 2,000 images. And what they started to see that a significant impact was being made both on engagement and conversions, with 11.3% of people engaging with the asset and then purchasing. That was an increase or an uplift in 70% in conversion compared to those who hadn't engaged with any assets. Because they're able to collect so much review content and photo content at the same time, they're now in a position where they can display authentic customer photos across 50% of their product ranges. And as we can see, about 18.3% conversion for visitors who've engaged, clicked on, or had an impression on that photo. So it really does go to show kind of the power of visual UGC, how it builds trust between the brand and the customer, and how it can go on to impact those conversions. Number 9, using SMS to guide customers to purchase. So SMS is an amazing channel in terms of driving urgency and increasing conversions. Why? Because of its immediacy. Like, we live in a world where we want things delivered the same day. We want everything at our fingertips. And that's the same with communication between brand and channel as well. So the great thing with SMS is that it has a 98% open rate. So brands have an amazing opportunity to directly get their messages into the hands of their customers really efficiently and effectively. One thing that works really well is cart abandonment and basket abandonment with SMS. If you think about it, we're all on our phones. It's the preferred shopping channel nowadays. I'm shopping on my phone, I abandon cart because someone maybe calls me. And then 15 minutes later, I get a text message that says, hey, Alice, like, you left this in your basket, here's 10% discount. Delivering that message through SMS definitely helps cut through the noise. It's not being filtered into a promotions inbox. I'm one of those people that has that old school Hotmail account that's just full of emails. I don't live in my emails, but I live on my phone. So this is about how can we communicate with our customers and really increase the chances of them converting in the best way possible. And there's lots of other campaigns that can be run as well, not just abandon cart, but around certain holidays like Black Friday, making people aware of what discounts or early access they have, and help deliver those time-sensitive offers via SMS. And Princess Polly is a great example of a Gen Z brand that is doing this. They adopted SMS marketing. They were able to generate $4 million in revenue from SMS marketing in 3 months. And that was a 64 times higher ROI. It's not just for these types of brands though, so don't worry if you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not one of those brands. Like, it can be used across any demographic. Yes, I think of course we need to know that there are certain demographics that maybe SMS is more widely adopted, but let's, be real and face the reality that everyone has a phone, everyone texts or WhatsApps. And so it is still a great communication channel. It doesn't have to be sales pushy. Like I said, abandoned cart emails definitely help with conversion rates. Number 10, so launch or optimize a customer loyalty program. So loyalty programs are a perfect way to boost engagement and generate and boost conversions as well. One thing to always bear in mind when it comes to a loyalty program is that no loyalty program should be the same from brand to brand. And that's because your loyalty program should be reflective of the goals and objectives that you're setting as a brand. And what I mean by that is that the types of campaigns and the types of actions you want your customers to complete in order to gain points, for example, should be related to your overall goals. So any conversion goals that you have, that can be incentivized through loyalty. So whether that's tying in loyalty and reviews, you want to generate more content to have more social proofing on site, let's incentivize someone to leave a review. You know, as a brand, that your highest engagement and communication channel is on social. So let's incentivize our customers to follow on social in order to keep top of mind for them there. So any goals that you have could be around subscription. You're a subscription business and you want to incentivize people to have those multiple subscriptions coming through. You can incentivize there. The other part to loyalty, and Kai spoke about this a lot actually, is like that fear, well, FOMO. And what we're able to do is through VIP tier programs and loyalty is to create a VIP tier program that means that the more maybe a customer spends, the more points they have, the more friends they refer, they have access to more exclusive perks and benefits. And naturally what we see is that like average order value will increase, because if they know that they're just 50 points away from getting into that next tier, and perhaps that next tier offers free shipping, something that Claire mentioned, then they will convert, they'll add more to their basket and they will want to be tipped over into that. So it's another great way of kind of playing on that psychological aspect of e-commerce, I suppose, encouraging people to spend that little bit more in order to get all the perks and benefits that they want. And an example of that is Eastside Co. So these guys launched about 24 months ago, and their main goal was, to help boost engagement and retention. They had 11 unique campaigns specifically built around their goals and objectives to make sure that they could get their customers to complete actions that would help them reach their goals. And you can see here by a quote from the founder that loyalty is massive, it's crucial in that customer journey. You're always thinking about the customer needs and humanizing the brand. And the stats, 600% revenue lift after 24 months, 60% increase in customer retention rate. So it really does go to show the power of a loyalty program. And not only can we get customers to spend, but how can we get them to come back and spend more and more with us? And then the last one, number 11, ties really nicely into loyalty, is referrals. So we as humans all have a natural tendency to ask for a recommendation and to give recommendations. If I was coming to Birmingham next week, I'd say, hey Lewis, I'm coming, where should I go to eat? Or where's a really nice bar? Where can I go to? And so as an e-commerce brand, like there's a huge opportunity for you to be able to tap into that natural human tendency. And what we do know is that consumers will trust the word and the advice and the recommendation of their friends and their family way more than just the generic brand marketing messaging. So much so that they're 4 times more likely to buy when they've been referred by a friend. And we also know that they are more than likely to spend more as well because they have that trust. What's really important to get this right is making sure that you are rewarding both the person that is making that referral and the person that is getting referred. It's about 80% of referrals are made from just the top 5% of your customer base. So you need to make sure that you get it right. You need to be offering them something. You can't just be asking them to do it for nothing. Ultimately, one of the biggest goals of Refer a Friend is reducing that customer acquisition cost. So you need to understand, what does your normal customer acquisition cost look like? So what can we offer as an incentive? In this example here, it's $40, obviously, so you're giving 20 2 times away. So perhaps their customer acquisition cost is $50. So there's that reduction in that customer acquisition costs. At the same time, you're getting someone who is like your most loyal customer who would naturally spend more with you. And there's definitely the potential to increase your conversion rates by like double, which is exactly what happened to Ministry of Supply. quite a niche, I guess, vertical that they're in. So Refer a Friend works really, really well for those guys. But they also did a really nice thing in tying it into their loyalty program as well. And they could see that 52% of referrals were driven by their VIP customers. So it definitely goes to show how you can tie the two quite nicely together to really increase the conversions and engagement and ultimately customer lifetime value of your customers. And I think that's my 5, isn't it? I don't think I didn't put in an extra one. So there we have it.
Thanks, Ellis. I think the big takeaways from me were dry skin, under 5'5". Those were the big. Gave
away everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. No, it was brilliant. Thank you so much. We've got a couple of questions to go through. Feel free to keep submitting them, guys, and we'll answer as many as we can. We've got one from Ben Oliver here. How do you avoid the spam culture using SMS and causing customer frustration?
Yeah.
I suppose that's one for you there, Alice.
Yeah, good question, and one that comes up all the time whenever I'm talking about SMS. I think the first thing to note with SMS is that it is 100% opt-in. So you're only, firstly, going to be communicating with customers who have chosen to hear from you. You can't just ask, when you're in your checkout and it says, please leave a number and this is for delivery updates. You cannot take that number and use it to start sending sales promotions. It's not compliant. So first things first is that you're only communicating with people who want to hear from you. Having said that, because it is a super personalized channel, you need to make sure that you are getting it right. So this is when you can use all of the data points that you have on Shopify or have on that SMS platform and any other integrations with any other technologies to be able to deliver super personalized and segmented text messages to your customers. So, for example, if they are part of a loyalty program, then you can start to say like, hey, Claire, you have 500 points in your loyalty account. Did you know you're just 50 points away from moving into the next tier? Or it's, hey, it's Black Friday. As a Gold VIP member, we're giving you early access and 10% off. So it's using all the data points that you either got from Shopify, from other Yotpo products or whatever, to be able to tailor those messages. Definitely not about batch and blasting and all that kind of stuff. And then specifically within Yotpo, because we recognize the importance of, I guess, how we are as British people of not wanting to feel spam too. Like there's certain like smart sending you can do. So you can make sure that someone doesn't receive a text message if they've received one in the last 24 hours. So there's lots of way around it, but it's all about hyper-personalized, using the data that you've got and remembering that people have opted in, but getting that delivery right.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this question, because I've been looking on quite a few calls with Ellis and the team at Yotpo and talking about SMS, is that we often get this, that SMS feels invasive, and the kind of strategies and tactics that we talk about with SMS, they're not, the actual strategy you take with the channel shouldn't be any different to the strategy you're taking with any other channel. If you're batching and blasting on email, if you're spamming, there's less complaint these days because people are desensitized to the amount of emails that they get, and they're kind of a bit more free with their data when it comes to emailing. So if your approach via email is to, or any other channel, is just to kind of inundate people with messaging and just, hit people at the right time by just throwing as much at the wall as you can and hoping something sticks, then you're taking the wrong approach on other channels. So SMS is no different, really. I think that definitely has to be care taken with it, because it is it's a personal piece of data. I think what we always talk about is like Ellis said, is almost creating that kind of bubble around SMS where you really have to show people the value that you're going to offer them in order for them to sign up. And that used to be the same with email, right? In order to collect people's emails, you used to have to show a lot of value. You used to have to give people things. You used to have to be kind of an exchange in order to gain their data. People are much freer with that now, but SMS is kind of the new version of that. And I think the important thing about SMS is that it's still quite early days in terms of it as a fully fledged marketing tactic. So the results are really, really great right now. I would guess that in the next couple of years, there will be various filtering things put in place, and there will be various things that will come into place that will make it a more challenging channel. So for me, it's always worth kind of trying to get in early and leveraging it as soon as possible, because you can create that loyal audience, you can create that those really great results. And the results that Ellis showed on the case study there are not, they're pretty typical results. We see those kind of results with lots of clients that go on this. So it's definitely worth approaching, and I think just treat it with care, and absolutely probably more important than email, to make sure they're absolutely compliant with the data that you're collecting, because I would imagine the complaints would be significantly higher if you were messaging someone and they hadn't opted in. But thanks for the question, Ben. Appreciate it. This one for you, Claire. Do you have an example for the advert in smaller collections? That's from anonymous attendee.
So there's a couple of things that I'd recommend doing, and it really depends on the type of company you are, the products you're serving, and how many products you have overall. The first one would be kind of sending them to another collection. So for example, if they're viewing a new season collection, actually pushing them to previous seasons that are still available, and pushing them over to those kind of areas to add to a cross-sell. You could give them reminders to kind of justify why to purchase. So this could be a reminder of a promotion that you've got running. It could be a reminder of free shipping or anything along those lines, just kind of ways in which to incentivize purchases and kind of keep them going, keep them kind of building up a cart.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. It's always just giving people a reason to continue their journey, right? As opposed to bring it to an end. Yeah, that's great. This one's from Anthony. Would you recommend a mobile app? I will take this one, Anthony. The answer is maybe, and sometimes, depending on your audience. My kind of position on mobile apps is they're obviously incredibly powerful, but they're only really relevant if you have quite a high returning customer rate and you have a very, very loyal audience, people who are willing to, they're on your site often enough that there's a convenience for them to be able to browse it through a mobile app, and that there's an improved user experience to be able to browse it through a mobile app. If you're very much a one-time purchase, or you're focusing on, lifetime value isn't the focus of your brand, then a mobile app's really not going to add that much value to your users. For people like fast fashion, for example, or fashion brands in general, where there's this culture of kind of window shopping, almost sitting and scrolling through ASOS or whatever, mobile apps are really powerful because there's a really convenient way to do that. We do see really great results with clients who build out mobile apps and integrate those with Shopify. So for sure, it's worth looking into, especially if your returning customer rate is good and you want to give people a really convenient way to access your site in a really user experience friendly way. Then for sure, a mobile app is key. But I think there's foundational stuff that you should have in place to make sure that that's going to add value to the users. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Right, a few other questions that we had pre-webinar. We may have answered some of these in brief, but we'll kind of go over them individually. Karen has asked what's the best way to identify barriers to conversion? Claire, do you want to take that one first? I think you may have touched on some of them.
So there is so many different elements that can kind of be done here. As I said, my favorite thing to talk about, and I can talk about it for hours, would be adding surveys into as many kind of areas as possible. And once you start to work out certain things that aren't working, you can kind of add surveys to trigger in certain areas. Or if you notice that more people are unhappy on desktop or mobile, you can really kind of drill into the data to kind of refine it and make sure you're targeting those people and looking at surveying them. You could look into doing things like just assessing Hotjar, like where people are getting frustrated, what the average journey looks like. You can do forums, you can do kind of anything to gather that element. You can look to do user testing, eye tracking. There is a very long list that you can kind of start down. Some of these take hours, days, weeks to work with, because the data you're getting back is so much in volume, it just kind of takes ages to go through. Some of the quicker things would just be adding something like Hotjar or kind of any equivalent, kind of adding those to the site and starting to monitor them on a regular basis and looking at kind of Google Analytics and seeing what you can find there, and if there's kind of any changes or anything that's being impacted. And just, again, one of the key things which I really kind of preach about is making sure you're noting what's happening in GA. So that way, if you notice that there's a sudden like dive of something and it lines up with launching a new development or launching a new product, you can kind of go, okay, this is the reason why. And you can really understand what's going on in those areas.
Yeah, I think someone's just added onto that question. Is there a specific place that you would recommend putting a survey? Is it a global element that people can access at any time? Is it a pop-up? Like, how do you recommend implementing that?
So, as I said, my favorite place to kind of start with adding it is into that post-purchase, into that thank you page. Even consider sending it out in kind of your post-purchase emails as a survey, kind of after the review. So people who are kind of really opening the emails to not impact gathering reviews. If you start to kind of dig into it, then I would say take a small portion of your data and start to target them in other areas. And I would really, as I said, I would really kind of push into it and ask different questions if they're on desktop or mobile, ask different questions depending on their journey or what products they're looking at. Within apps similar to Hotjar, you can also look for generic feedback. So how are people generically finding the website? Again, I would add these in for a small portion of sessions. They are really useful because they give you kind of a screenshot of where the user is. Users can attach videos of kind of what they're doing on the site. And if this is more relevant if you are launching a new element to a website, to have these is because it's a great way of kind of catching those bugs or those kind of real pain points that users are having. But yeah, I mean, my first place would be your post-purchase thank you page, and then start to roll it out from there.
Awesome. And in terms of barriers to entry, Ellis, just, not barriers to entry, sorry, barriers to conversion. When you see kind of, obviously with conversion optimization, a large part of what we have to do is test and learn, right? So we have to make some assumptions, or we have some kind of hypothesis about why we think things are going wrong, and we implement changes. How often do you find it takes when you're implementing things like loyalty or the things that you mentioned to start seeing shifts in results? And do you see people actually testing from a conversion rate point of view on their loyalty programs and those kind of things?
Yeah, for sure, especially when it comes to loyalty. I think with loyalty, like 90% of the work is done like pre-launch. Like I said before, like it's really important that you build a framework that is going to meet your objectives and your goals. So understanding what the average order value is, what your customer acquisition cost is, what's the value of the points. But you also want to make sure that you don't just set it and then forget it. Like loyalty programs need to be iterated in order to make sure that you are meeting your goals. And an example of that is like, yeah, if you set up this VIP tier program that we spoke about, and then maybe 3 months in, you want to go in and you want to check it, and you can see that no one's moving from tier 1 to 2. Like, why is that? Like, is it because you've set the threshold too high and actually people can't get to £200 spend, so you need to lower it? So it's really important that when you are building a loyalty program, that it's agile as well, so you can go in and make those changes. We wouldn't recommend that you're making them all the time. You don't want to confuse your customers. You don't want to, you need them to know what clearly they need to do in order to get the value from them. But definitely a solution that you can make changes when you need to, and then checking in, like every quarter or every 6 months. And really with any loyalty provider as well, like what's going to help is having like a strategist and a CSM to be able to tell you what that is as well, and lean back on hundreds of programs that we've created for others to know what works and what doesn't. So yeah, we definitely see a lot of testing going on.
I think the same applies to everything, right? There's with loyalty, with SMS, with conversion optimization, with your website in general, with your marketing. Unfortunately, there is never a finished product. There is no brochure that you print, that you send out, and that's it for the next year or two. You need to reprint. It should be an ever evolving thing. You should never try to. You're never going to get to a perfect product. You're never going to get to. There's no silver bullet to this, and all of the things we're talking about are kind of individual tactics or methodologies that you can use as part of a whole. There's lots of other things that might affect your conversion rate and might affect how people are interacting with your site. So you need to consider the whole picture, I suppose. Quick question here. What would you include on the homepage that would catch people's attention? Alice, do you want to bash at that first?
Yeah, I think I mentioned like the visual UGC element to it. So like I said, really on your homepage, it's like looking through a shop window, right? You're walking down the high street, you see this shop, you're like, should I go in? Maybe I'll just look through the window to see. And that's what your homepage is when it's online. And it's all about inspiring. Like you want to, someone that lands, you want to keep them on the page for one. You want to pull out all of the content that you have. So this rich imagery to really tell the story of who you are as a brand. And Claire mentioned it before about like tying in, like when you're trying to justify price, like maybe tying in the sustainability element. So if there's a really strong story behind you as an origin of a brand, making sure that comes through and shines through on your homepage, whether that's through imagery or like just a bit of wording around who you are as a business. But for me, yeah, I want to land on a homepage and I want to clearly know who this brand is, what's the story behind them and what products they sell. To get me excited and to get me inspired to think, how can I purchase from them? So this is what I was saying about like visual UGC galleries, content that's not just brand driven as well. Like I said, real authentic content. You know, you're a athletic brand, right? You're selling leggings and workout tops. I don't want to see a picture of leggings. I want to see people hiking in the LA hills. And I'm like, that's what I could be doing with when I wear this, you know. No, it's selling a lifestyle. That's essentially what you need to be doing on your homepage.
UGC, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with acronyms, but UGC, for anyone who's not aware, is user-generated content. So content that your users are taking that you then utilize through advertising or through on your site. Claire, what would you add to the homepage? Anything specific?
I think the key thing is to kind of keep it short and make sure that everything is linking to a collection or to a product, or because the key aim is to kind of get people into the products and get people buying. It isn't to kind of really sell, well, this is who we are, this is where we've come from, and to sell so much for the story. So I would definitely use it as something to kind of tackle any objections. So kind of keep your key messaging above the fold, because most people really, I think about 75% will actually scroll and it then very dramatically will start to decline. So make sure all of your key messaging is just really near the top. And I would keep that, as I said, any kind of key benefits, USPs, anything that kind of reminds users to why to buy from you. And I would just kind of keep it bold CTAs as much as possible for that section, just to, again, keep driving people over to products or collections or ranges to get them going in that funnel.
Yeah. If you think about your website hierarchically, you know, basically the further down the hierarchy you go, the more detailed the information tends to be, or the kind of more commitment you need for the user to move on to the next step. So your homepage is kind of almost a teaser elements for all of those things. So it might be a teaser of your brand story, it might be teasers of collections. I can give you what not to put on your homepage. That's carousels at the top of the page. Get rid of them if you have them. They don't work. They're not good. So don't have to do that. Choose a specific message that you want to have above the fold, or merchandise specifically above the fold for the products or the collections that you want to push at that time. Don't try and get 4 or 5 key messages, because all it means is that you have no key message, because automated carousels either skip the first thing before the users had a chance to consume it, and users don't interact with them. The drop-off rate through a carousel is huge. So if you're using carousels on your site, it's time to go. It's time to get rid of those. Okay, we've probably got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. This one's from Tiffany. I've had a strong conversion rate of 4.32%, and all of a sudden it dropped to 2%. Any recommendations on what I should do to see why that happened and get it back up again to a healthy state? Claire, any thoughts?
It's a really tricky one without kind of knowing what's happening around about that time frame, what's been going on in the sector. It's definitely one that I would kind of start by looking at GA and just start kind of looking at everywhere and looking at the time frame which it's happened with and working out what's happened in that time frame. Have you started, have you launched a new season? But I've seen it before where a client launched a new season of products and it was summer dresses, but it was snowing outside. So they saw a huge decline in conversion because they didn't have the right product for the right season, and no one was interested in buying summer dresses at that point. So it could be something like that. It could be certain elements aren't working as well, or things have changed, or it can be really open-ended. But yeah, I would definitely say just kind of look at GA, have a poke around as many reports as possible, try to work out when it started happening and if anything there has dramatically changed other than conversion rate. And maybe just start to look at user journeys and what users are doing and where users are dropping off, and just see if there's anything happening at that point. And again, adding a survey in to where you're thinking that people are dropping off, saying, even live chats about, is there anything I can help with? Is there anything going on? And kind of trying to interact with users would be kind of a great way to see what's happening.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is like Claire said, is like what happened in that period, because something has happened. And I think one thing we haven't really touched on in this, because we have a limited amount of time, and we want to give you kind of key actionable things that you can take away. But the other huge part of conversion rate is what traffic you're sending to the site. It makes a huge difference. So for example, if maybe hypothetically in that period you're on a 4.32% conversion rate, and your Facebook targeting and your Google targeting was all kind of hyper focused, really intent based, focused around remarketing or existing customers or abandoned cart. What we often see is, as you broaden out your marketing, which is important to scale, is that a known result of that short term is to see a drop off in conversion rate. So that's the one thing, is you've got all these on-site things that we're talking about that are really, really powerful for making the most of the existing traffic. The other element of conversion rate is what traffic are you actually sending to the site. So there is an expectation that as you broaden out and you try to scale, you will inevitably and naturally see some drop off in conversion rate. And the hope is that you continue to work on the customers that are coming to the site, both on site and off site, to bring that conversion rate back up again. But if you can answer that big question in terms of, really focus in on the time period that happened and say what changed during that period, that might help to answer your question. And hopefully we have to get back up to a healthy state again. Right, maybe one or two more. I'll answer this one quickly. Are Google Ads in 2022 still worth the time and price, or should online businesses lean back into retail stores and pop-up events? Retail and pop-up are actually, have a bit of a resurgence, and generally for people who have really strong brands already, look at the likes of Gymshark, who've built really strong online business and then have kind of veered into retail because they have that attraction. So I think there's really a space for online for physical stores and pop-up events if you've got a really strong customer base and you can attract people to those. In terms of Google Ads, for sure, they're a single tactic within a whole suite of tactics. So are they still worth it? I think so. Yeah, if you're doing them right and you're focusing on intent-based searches and you're really showing people how you solve a problem, then it is still worth the time. Should it be 100% your only focus? No. You've got Google Ads, you've got paid social, you've got your organic social, which supports that. You've got influencer marketing, you've got email marketing, you've got search engine optimization, you've got on-site CRO, you've got things like loyalty programs and SMS, and all of that. Like, none of those things should be looked at on their own and said, is this still a thing that we should be doing? Unless any single one of them is, overtly performing very, very badly and is having a net negative effect on your business, you should consider all of those things as adding value to the business. Hopefully that answers that question. Right, final one. If items aren't budging, how do you separate an actual conversion issue from a product or marketability issue? Anyone want to raise their hand?
I can take this one.
Give it a go. Go for it.
So one of the things which I like to do is I do like to start looking into products and collections and looking at the conversion rate of certain products. You are able to do this with several apps, and you're able to start to work this out within GA as well, and kind of get into that. So I would definitely say if you notice one that kind of doesn't fit in with the normal trend, again, I will always kind of assess, is it a new season or is it a past season, and then start to look into, well, is it because it's just an older season and actually people aren't so interested in it because they've already got it? So looking at historic data for that product as well. But quite often and predominantly I'm going to say fashion retailers, when new products are launched, quite often when I've been client side as well, I will just look at that particular product and looking at its conversion rate and its kind of effectiveness, and start to kind of discount those when looking at conversion issues if there is quite not obviously and noticeably an issue with a certain kind of range.
Final question for you, Alice. Do you have a specific reason why some brands are still reticent to utilize SMS as a tactic? We may have touched on some of them already, but do you see a specific reason why people are kind of holding off on that right now?
I think a lot of it does come down to this whole perception of it being spammy. I don't get it. I don't get why brands aren't jumping into this opportunity because of the crazy ROI. And like I said, the clients that we have together, like you can just see the crazy numbers and the ROI that they're generating. I think although it's a relatively new channel in terms of e-commerce, it's a relatively older channel in terms of communication. So I think that probably has something to do in terms of our perception of it. And I think we all know it as e-commerce is just, ASOS, you get a text saying your delivery, Alice, is coming between 11 and 1. So I think there's that hesitancy because in the UK, not as many brands are doing it. In the US, it's completely different and people are jumping on SMS because FOMO, they want to miss out. I think what needs to change in the UK is people can see it, like you said, as an opportunity. These rates aren't going to last like forever, and they can get ahead of the curve if they jump in on it, and they're only going to see nothing but phenomenal results. So I think it's just changing the mindset slightly and not being afraid to jump in on a new channel. I think if you look at your other channels, it will prove that there's a case to try something new. So I think it's just that nerves.
Nice, awesome. Right. Well, before we head off, thanks for all your questions, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We'll send out the recording of this to everyone in the coming days, and keep an eye on your emails. We've got a nice little offer going out for some services. If you want some consultation from Claire from a conversion rate optimization point of view, then we'll be sending out a kind of specific offer for the attendees of the event, so look out for that. Alice, if people want to find out more about what Yotpo does, all of the wonderful things that you spoke about, what should they do?
Yeah, I mean, you can directly email me, and my email will be on slides, but it's echild@yotpo.com. And yeah, as Eastside Co partners, or with you found us via this, then I'm sure there's something we can do as well to make sure that you have the best experience possible with us. But yeah, reach out, connect with you on LinkedIn. I think all my details will be on the follow-up emails as well. So please just, don't be afraid to get in touch.
Thanks, Alice. And if you want to find out more about Eastside Co or the work we do, then jump on eastsideco.com and you can check out all of our services on there. Everything I've mentioned pretty much in terms of tactics is a service that we can offer, as well as development and creative, and obviously the brilliant Claire in terms of growth and optimization. You can have direct access to her and get lots and lots of value out of it. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll get this sent out to you all shortly, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully. But if not, have a good day.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.